Okay. Well, hi. I'm David Adler. I'm the leader of the New York Perlmongers. I've been hanging around Perl for about 20 years now, and they've asked me to give a few pointers as to where one can go for information if you're starting out in Perl. And so let's just start off and go into it. Sorry, this slide didn't quite work on the screen, but anyway, so Perl 5 itself comes with full documentation. It's got a full set of documentation that comes with the Perl distribution. You can read that documentation with the Perl Doc program, which also comes with the Perl distribution. Perl Doc will tell you how to use Perl Doc. Perl Doc TOC will give you the table of contents. Perl Doc Func will give you the list of Perl built-in functions. And there's also Perl var for the special variables, and Perl syn for the Perl syntax, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all on your computer, and you can access that at any time. It has options, so if you want to look up a specific function, you can look up, say, split here, and it'll give you the full documentation from the Perl Func manifest page about that particular function. You can search the facts for questions in the FAQ. For instance, here you see you ask for shuffle, and it'll give you the answer for how do I shuffle an array randomly. That term you can give to perl.doc.q can be a regular expression, so you can search very efficiently and generally with that. The Perl variables, there's perl.doc.v if you need to know what a special variable does. Here, $_, the default variable, or say, say $0, which is the program name, but any of the special variables you can pull up with perl.-v. For modules, any module name, you say perl.doc and the module name, and if it's installed, it will give you the documentation that is written for that module, formatted using pod. And you can also get the full text of the module, the code and the pod unformatted with perl.doc-m. And that'll give you a chance to look at everything in that module file. Perl.doc-l can be very handy if you're having trouble figuring out where that module is hiding once it got installed. That will give you the full path of where that is. I should point out that I'm using semicolons as the example module here. You should never use this module. It is the one module I maintain. I'm telling you, don't use it. If you want the full story, I'm happy to give it to you later, but don't use that module. Now, Perl 6, as Damien said, we are all beginners in Perl 6, so I wanted to cover Perl 6 as well. P6 doc is the equivalent of Perl doc for Perl 6. This may not be your best option, or at least this is what they are saying, because it is written in Perl 6, and Perl 6, although it is a very full and useful language, it is still being worked on and being optimized, so it's not as fast as Perl 5's Perl doc. In practice, though, I have not found this to be a problem. It may take an extra second or two for the documentation to appear on your screen. For instance, we can just, I didn't change the, let's try that. Okay, so P6 doc, use that for the string class, and that will, so it's taking a couple of seconds to up and render, but not terribly slow for documentation. So in practice, that may not be a problem for you. You can use P6 doc very well. The only thing about this is if you do not install Perl 6 with, say, the implementation distribution like Rakudo star, if you just install Perl 6 by itself, it will not be included, and you would have to install it as a module. It's in the module distributions, and you can add that if you, for some reason, have not used the Rakudo star distribution, which installs all kinds of things with the actual implementation of Perl 6. On the web, if you want to look up your Perl 5 documentation, perldoc.perl.org has documentation going back for versions back to 5.88. So if you need to know how something worked in a previous version of Perl, if you need to figure out compatibility issues, that may be a very useful thing for you. And modules, of course, on the web at cpan.org, the Comprehensive Perl Archive Network, which has, as we see here, sorry, I did not get the screen worked out well before this. So yes, there's 169,000 or so modules that you can use, and often if there is a task you are looking to do, it is very likely that someone has already done that and has a module that you can use instead of having to write the code from scratch. You install that. There is also a search engine for that at metacpan.org, which a lot of people like. It's a little more kind of shiny and a little less cluttered, so people do like that. And it's very useful. And you can install your modules manually. You can download a tarball of it, and there will be instructions in that for how to install the module. There is the cpan tool, which is the cpan module, which comes with a Perl distribution. And there's a cpan minus, which is a much more streamlined tool that does not require you to do as much stuff. It does a lot more automatically, which you would install with the app cpan minus module. Other resources, there's perlmonks.org, still active. People are still asking questions and getting responses on Perlmonks. It's not as active as it used to be, but it is still a useful source. I hate to add a less Perl specific answer, but Stack Overflow is actively being used, and many people who actively use Perl and have used Perl for years are answering questions on Stack Overflow. So it can be a very useful place to look for answers to your Perl questions, and in fact may be what your Google search turns up as its first response for that. And obviously all of these are contributed by volunteers and people who are just going on the web. So not every answer may be the best answer, but it certainly will give you pointers and may in fact give you a full answer to your question. But those are both good places to look for. If you have something that's not quite clicking with you, you can find an explanation about many things. Perl 6, the documentation, many people prefer using the doc.perl6.org website rather than p6doc. It's a little faster, comes up a little quicker. It has autocomplete support. If you type something in the search field, it will give you a list of options. So if you are looking for the isPrime function, for instance, if you type is-p and it will say, oh, here is isPrime, and you can click on that and it will go to the documentation for that function. The downside is some searches, like for operators, may have difficulties. The engine for searching is not perfect yet with, I am halfway, yay. So yes, there are a few little glitches here and there, but if you encounter problems, please report them. We're actively trying to get everything fixed when it comes up. Perl 6 is on GitHub, by the way, and the documentation for Perl 6 is on GitHub, so you can submit an issue for the Perl 6 doc repository if you find a problem with the documentation webpage, and say, I'm searching for this and I can't find it, it will not come up, and they will look into that and try to fix it. So, and the Perl 6 team is very responsive to things like this. They're improvements with this all the time. There is also design.perl6.org. I mention this only because it is considered out of date. These are the original spec documents for Perl 6. The user documentation is still a work in progress, and there are times when looking for the original concepts of how things were going to be designed can be helpful if the user documentation itself is not fully clear. Although patches are always welcome to the user documentation. I may actually give a lightning talk later in the week exhorting people to please help document Perl 6, because much of the effort is going into making Perl 6 work and work faster. And as we all know, people hate to document things. So the documentation occasionally falls a little behind. But I think if we have more eyes and more hands working, we'll get very good documentation for Perl 6. Modules for Perl 6 are available on modules.perl6.org. The original install tool is called Panda. You say Panda install, say task : and that will install the task : package. Zeph and Red Panda are other install tools for modules that are being developed, and a lot of people are liking Zeph. So if you're going to play around with Perl 6, you might want to try those. Then there's IRC, which can be a bit of a minefield. Not everyone likes IRC, not everyone on IRC wants to talk to you about your Perl stuff. In fact, traditionally, one did not actually go to pound Perl on the Perl IRC network for help with Perl. In fact, you would probably be told, if you asked a Perl question, you would be told often, you should go ask in pound Metallica, because that was thought to be just about as appropriate. Because pound Perl was more a place where Perl people went to hang out and talk, not so much talk about Perl. However, this may no longer be true. I actually was on IRC yesterday and I saw someone actually answer some Perl questions in pound Perl. So it has perhaps become a nicer, gentler place. So much for tradition. But for general Perl help, there is a Perl help channel specifically for questions and for people needing help with Perl. And a number of well-known Perl people keep an eye on that and will answer your questions and try to help you if you have a question. Of course, as always, it helps for you to give a little thought to what your question really is before you go in, but that is where you can certainly go for general Perl help. If you need help on, say, a particular Perl technology like Catalyst or Moose or Dancer, there are channels for those technologies. And if you need something very specific to those channels may be a very good place for you to get help, because people who are working on a project like that are generally very happy to help people who are using it. There are channels for specific Perlmonger groups. I'll be getting to Perlmongers momentarily, but if you are a member of a Perlmonger group, some of your colleagues in the group may be hanging out in London PM or the Seattle Perl Users Group channel. There are IRC channels for conferences. When OSCON is on, there's usually a pound OSCON. Right now, there is a pound YAPC, as we're in transition on the name. It's hasn't changed to TPC yet. But there are people in pound YAPC who you will be able to chat with, who are here throughout the week. And you may be able to get to know some people who may in the future be able to help you. There is a Perl 6 channel on Magnet, but it is not the official Perl 6 channel. People discuss it, but if you really want to go to Perl 6, we move on to Freenode. The Freenode pound Perl has historically been a little more helpful about general Perl questions than Magnet pound Perl. So a lot of discussion of Perl goes on in there and people get help. Pound Perl 6 is where the Perl 6 people tend to hang out. So if you're working with Perl 6 and you have questions about Perl 6, particularly, it's been very helpful with trying to write user documentation for Perl 6, because I will often go, hey, I don't get how this works, and I will go in there and I will just start asking questions until I get answers, and then we can write documentation, and that's a process that actually seems to work. Then there are the user groups. The PerlMonger groups have been around for about 20 years, starting with the New York group, which I am a founding member of. And then PerlMonger groups started popping up all over the world. At one point there was a PerlMonger group in Antarctica. So we covered all the continents at one point. If you do not have a user group in your area, start one. Look around for, check with your, you'll almost certainly have a Linux users group, for instance, or some other dynamic language users group. See if anyone wants to start a PerlMongers group. And this can be a very, very useful resource, because getting to talk to people face to face about Perl is very useful. I note that some groups are more technical, some are more social. New York has always been more social, although we've added technical meetings in more recent years. Other groups are more technical and don't really have social meetings. There's usually a mix of technical, social meetings, and that's good because you get to know people who you can then later, if you need some help or you have questions, or you might just make some very good friends. So PerlMonger groups I highly recommend if you can find one in your area. Conferences. YAPC, North America, where you are now. Now apparently known as the Perl Conference. Some old and cranky people like myself will probably still call it YAPC. Try to be gentle with us. We're stuck in our ways. But this is the main Perl oriented conference. The open source conference this year did have some Perl content, but it's had less and less over the years, unfortunately, which is particularly unfortunate since OSCON started as the Perl conference for the first 2 years. The Europe YAPC is coming up in August in Cluj, in Romania. You should talk to Jeff because he is involved with that. And then there are workshops. There are often 1 day, 1 or 2 day workshops on weekends or something. And there is a lot of good content there. You have a regular Dutch workshop, do you not? Every year there's a Dutch Perl workshop. And so in various parts of the world there are these small workshops which are wonderful. And again, a good place to meet people. And if you want, if you can find a space, find a small space and invite people to have a workshop or a hackathon. This is always, I cannot stress enough how good it is to actually speak to people face to face about Perl. It really is helpful, and Perl's great strength is its community. So I highly recommend you find other Perl people to talk to. Running out of time. Anyway, oh good, I'm at the end. There are resources all around. They're on your computer, in various places. There are even resources in the world, in real life. I know we often avoid real life because we're programmers, but it's very helpful. And there are people all around who can help you. If you look for them, you will find them. And I wish you luck in your endeavors as Perl beginners or experienced Perl programmers, and I wish you the best. Thank you.